Somehow, my daughters fell in love with Formula One. I don't know how or why, but I'm not arguing. They may not know wheel, but does anyone?
Hi, and welcome to We Don't Know We LF1. I'm Anne.
And I'm Grace. We're two sisters who fell in love with Formula One, and now we talk about it on camera after every race.
But we're only excited to do it when Carlos wins.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Carlos, spoiler, if you haven't watched the race yet, we're not setting you up for any surprises. Carlos won. Um, yeah, I
Grace
mean,
has been celebrating ever since.
how can you not?
I
I'm
don't think
wearing
I've
all my
ever seen
Carlos
her
bracelets.
send so many things to the group chat text chain, and especially the
Yeah.
Instagram thread,
I think because the
all of which
last
were
time
so lovely.
I think when you went in Singapore, I was visiting a friend in Hawaii. So I was like, I'm excited, but I can't put my visit on hold to celebrate this. But today I'm just like hanging out. I have the day off. So I'm like, gorging myself on Carlos and Carlando content. And there's a lot of good content. And like, yeah,
And
I mean,
especially when they're on the podium together. So
everyone's a
much.
Carlos girly today. If social media has taught me anything, and as a Carlos girly, it's like I'm reading the comments and I feel like he usually is like kind of like middle, right? Where
Mhm.
like some people are like he's really underrated, some people are like he's overrated, but mostly it all kind of like comes out in the wash. Half the people like him, half the people don't.
Yeah.
Today on every single Carlos post I saw, every single person was like, he's underrated. How is this happening to him? Like, I'm, yeah, very happy for him.
I know it's
And
like partially random happenstance, but it is truly crazy that the one person in the last basically two
I love
years.
that you're going to say it's happenstance when it's like he won those races.
No,
He
okay,
won
what's
them.
happenstance is the fact that he doesn't have a drive for next year.
Okay,
That's what I mean
sure.
by happenstance. It's crazy that the one driver who has been able to beat Red Bull in the last all of last season and this season so far
Yeah.
does not have a drive for next year. And I understand Ferrari going with Lewis Hamilton. Like, you cannot deny the reasons why they made that move, but it's just crazy that he's the one driver that doesn't have a job
Mhm.
that is just absolutely killing it.
He is definitely killing it. Um, and I was like, I watched with friends last night, and
Mm-hmm.
I do feel like Carlos is generally at his best when he has something to prove and like
Yes.
nothing to lose. Like that, he's
Mm-hmm.
so used to going from team to team. He's he seems like he's really good at like pulling it together when
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing left to lose.
Yes. And I don't think he's stressed in any way about finding a drive. I think it's
Yeah.
much more about picking the one that's going to be best for him.
I I say this as a Carlos girly, but I'm like, I don't think he would be doing this well if he had a drive for next year.
Mm.
I think
I,
there's like a
I,
fire under him
yes,
to
I agree.
do, the best. I don't know, something in his life is like really coming together for him in a good way. Do you think he needs to sleep
Appendicitis.
more? Yeah, but it does make you be like, I mean, I feel like people talk about this with like a lot of things, but you can almost like overdo it
Mm-hmm.
with like exercising or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
where like you actually could be making bigger gains if you would take more rest.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Hmm.
So maybe he needed a rest. Um, he needed a rest. He was forced into one. Yeah, so that appendicitis really worked out for him. I also love he's gotten actually his seat essentially has gotten driver of the day for every race this season.
I did not realize that. That is
Yeah.
too cute.
Love that. Okay, when you said I know this is a coincidence, I thought you were gonna say that every time Carlos wins, George DNFs. Oh, Georgie boy. Yeah, he's troubled. Well, Mercedes is troubled. I really need to remove them from my fantasy team, which I'm not doing a good enough job of managing.
I I used the like unlimited or infinity chip, whatever it's called, which I
Uh-huh.
thought was just like unlimited transfers. It's also unlimited money for the week.
Oh, I
There's
saw that
no
on your
100
team. I was
million.
like,
Yes.
okay.
So
Sarah was
I
trying to
just
figure
went
out
like
why you did so well,
I
and
just
I
went
was like, I
all
don't
out
know.
with everybody except for Red Bull and Max. Like I think I had both
Wow.
McLarens and both Ferraris and those as my teams.
Well, that was a good call.
Use the chip for yourself. You can use it once a season. It's
I
epic.
know, but you have to know that that's gonna be like, you didn't know that the Red Bulls were not even gonna be in like the top 4.
And to be fair, I still had Checo on there.
Okay. To be fair. Yeah. So yeah. Okay, tell me what you thought about, so the race starts and Carlos was already like competitive, obviously. He's
I
starting in
like
second.
couldn't believe it when Carlos passed Max.
I was
Like,
like,
when is
what
the
is
last time
happening?
that's happened?
I
Typically,
know. And
in one lap, Max has gotten a full second ahead,
yeah, I was
even if
with
he
Jeff.
doesn't start on pole.
I was with my friend Jeff and I was like, what is happening? And he was like, no, he has a car issue, Grace. And I was like, what are you talking about? And then he retired like the next lap. But I was like, yeah, I was pretty stoked.
It felt so good to see that before we knew that he had a car issue. I'm like,
Yeah.
wait, somebody can actually
Yeah,
pass
I really
Max?
thought Ferrari was gonna bring the fight, but who
I know.
knows?
Well, also, I've heard after the race, Christian Horner said that like tear-off or something got stuck on the floor of Checo's car right as he was passing Fernando, which I would be curious. Like, there's part of me that's skeptical of that. Are they saying
Yeah.
that just to like save face a little bit for him? And it didn't actually make that much difference. But I would be curious to see what his pace would have been like if that hadn't happened. Would he have been able to catch up with McLaren's and challenge for the podium? Or
I mean,
what?
obviously the Ferraris were well suited to that track and fast.
I also would have been really curious to see if Checo had actually started in third and Max DNFs. What would happen in the battle between Carlos and Checo?
Yeah.
That would have been epic.
Yeah, and I mean Carlos, just that was a dominant race for Carlos, which was interesting to watch as well because I was like, "Oh, I'm nervous. We're going to have some fighting." And then it was like he was so dominant. He led that entire race and was even able to pit and keep his lead.
Yeah. So dominant, so impressive. And like with all of the other drivers being impacted in some way, shape, or form by an undercut, whether they were undercutting or someone was undercutting them, didn't factor in with Carlos at all
No,
because he had already built up like
such
what,
a lead.
5-second lead in front of Charles
Yeah.
before any of the pit stops happened. Yeah.
I think more than that.
Yeah. It was impressive.
So that was very impressive. And then Lando and Oscar, should we get into that? So they got team orders to switch. Then Oscar was such a sweet baby about it when he was asked about it after. And he was like, it was a good call from the team. We were on different plans. And like, yeah, I was talking to Sarah about it this morning.
He was
She's
a
like,
true gentleman about it.
what a good like call on McLaren getting him because he's such a good driver, but he's also a great team player.
Yes.
And he could have been like, I think I would expect any driver at their home race who had that happen to be bitter about it and be like, I could have had a podium. And he was like, no, it was the right call. And he was like so kind about it. So that was great. And then the Logan Sargent of it all, because Alex Albon crashed his car and then they couldn't use that chassis safely. So they had Logan give up his car to Alex.
Again, when we're talking about the fact that we both are starting to actually like Logan Sargent more, this is an example of, like, I feel like he's showing through actions along with words that he's a pretty decent person. Of he
Sure.
was being just like respectful and helpful, and but also not denying that, like, yeah, this sucks, but it is
Yeah.
what it is, and I'm gonna handle it.
Yes. I thought him and Alex both did a great job of handling it. I do still have major concerns about his ability to score any points.
I cannot imagine the hit your confidence would take. Your team principal comes to you and says, we have to try our best option
Yeah.
to score points, and that's not you.
But also, like, Logan knows that,
Yeah.
like, he's been so outperformed by Alex. And I don't say that
Yeah.
as a mean thing. It's just like, it is what it is. It would be
Mhm.
like if you came to Max and Checo and you were like, Max damaged the car, but we're gonna give the chassis to Checo. Like,
No, never.
no, I'm
Never.
sorry. It's like, yeah. And Checo knows that.
Yeah.
So,
I also feel like psychologically as humans, we all have so much bias towards ourselves that
mhm.
I'm sure every single time that Logan is struggling in comparison to Alex, he notices and sees all of the things that can be impacting that are outside of his control. And
Yeah.
so he probably thinks of himself more highly than outsiders would necessarily.
I'm sure, yes. I think that seems totally like valid and true. Because also,
Yeah.
I think like one, you have to have your own internal like confidence to do
Mhm.
any
Anything.
work. But, and like obviously with something like this, it's like each car is so different. Is the
Yeah.
car suited to you? Is this,
Yeah.
do you understand how to set up the car to work well for you?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of stuff going on there.
Yeah. But I just, like, I can't imagine that reality check of,
Yeah.
oh man, this is how the team sees me.
Yeah. Okay, and then let's go from there to steak. And then Alex didn't get
Oh,
any points. But I think
he was
I
close.
don't
He
think
did the
there's
best that he
any.
could, I thought.
Yeah, I agree.
I, like, can't
Steak.
believe that Haas is actually decent right now.
I know. Incredible.
How
They
did that
both got
happen?
points.
How?
It does make you be like, was
Was.
Gunther the problem this whole time?
Yes.
Was Gunther the problem?
Oh my gosh,
Is
I
he the
know.
problem? Maybe.
Yeah.
And
Anyways,
then steak though. I'm so
How?
sad. Like steak makes me sad now. I mean, I love their PR stuff that they're doing. I think I'm obsessed with like the green highlight layer, just different. They're letting Valtteri do all his cuckoo stuff and it's really fun. But
Mhm.
every pit stop, disaster. The car is so slow. It's fully like they were like, you know what, let's call it on this season. And I don't know what the plan is because I'm like, you
But
guys aren't
how
going
are
to make a
you
better car next year.
how are you going to convince a Carlos Sainz to come drive for you when you
Well, they
have
don't
these
have to,
fundamental issues?
right? They don't have to because they're going to become Audi and Audi is like got their own team working on all this stuff. I assume that's part of what's going on there is that like Steak is like, we are here for one more year. We just
We're
gotta,
surviving for one more year, and then Audi comes
yeah.
in with everything that they have.
Yes.
Maybe.
Maybe I'm totally wrong, but that's the only thing that makes sense to me because it seems like there's no even like thought towards a future.
Hmm.
They're just like, we just gotta make it through this season.
And try and get as much money as we can from Valtteri doing crazy stuff.
I mean, I hope Valtteri's making that money for himself and not Steak.
Yes.
Has Valtteri very quickly become like the most marketable F1 driver? I think he's
I
about to beat out
know.
Danny.
I know.
Yeah. That little like Uber the Uber ad was
Yes.
so good.
So
He's
fun.
like his Australian car and it's just like wildness.
Mm-hmm.
Love it.
So, yeah, I
Okay,
couldn't
so we've
even
talked
like.
Haas and Steak.
Yeah.
But yeah, what Steak had at least 2 slow pit stops and no
Mm-hmm.
points, and Valtteri's like at the
Mm-hmm.
back of the field.
And I think if they had decent pit stops, they would have been competing with Haas and with Williams.
Which is also like, that's not a problem of like the car is slow. You have drivers who can't, I don't know, do their job.
How
But
do you
that's
not
literally
understand the
like,
fundamental issue of how do you do a good pit stop?
I know. And I've heard them talk about because it always seems like there's a sticky wheel
There's
nut.
one particular part that doesn't work right for them.
Yes, they
seems
need
to
to
be
fix
having
that. It
same
seems
issue.
so wild.
Yes. Yep. Which, I mean, to be
Like-
fair, Williams also doesn't have a spare chassis.
I know. I think I had totally had it in my mind that like the gulf between the teams was closing more than I am now realizing it is. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Which I think in terms of pace, it is closing. In terms of
Money.
uh
I was talking about money.
yeah, that too. Because I think basically all teams are able to fund up to the cost cap.
Then why does Williams only have 2 chassis?
Because there's like figuring out fundamental organizational
Yeah.
issues.
Okay. They're still using Excel.
Yes.
I mean, Excel's a pretty good, tool, but
Well, then you have Red Bull, who has a major like a title sponsorship with Oracle.
yeah. And then, okay, this is silly, but I did notice this and I was like intrigued. Do you know who Monster Energy is sponsoring right now in F1?
McLaren.
Yes. Don't say that like it's obvious. They've been
Sorry.
sponsoring Mercedes forever.
I remember that coming out over the off season before the Lewis news was announced.
It's wild.
Yeah. It is
How
weird,
McLaren
like seeing
getting all the
Monster on
sponsorships?
McLaren. I know.
Yeah.
And
Which then led me down this rabbit hole of like, is Monster owned by Coke? And I guess Coke has like a 20% shareholding of Monster Energy. So,
interesting. I had no idea. The conglomerates of the world strike again.
yeah, because also doesn't it seem like it'd be better to have Coke as your sponsor? I don't know. So is there no more
know.
drink
I feel like-
sponsorship at Mercedes? Who will have the energy drinks?
I don't know. I do think an energy drink kind of fits the branding of Formula One a little bit more than just like Coke in
soft drink.
general. Yeah. But I mean,
because I think Ferrari
beer is
has
also a major
Celsius.
sponsor.
What?
Beer is also a major sponsor of just Formula One in general.
Yeah.
But, okay, sorry, you were saying someone has Celsius?
I think Ferrari.
Really? Didn't know
Maybe I'm
that.
wrong. I don't know the energy drinks very well, but I think I see a lot of videos with Ferrari where they have like Celsius cans out.
You know what one of the teams needs to get? Bubbler.
Kombucha. What?
The caffeinated like basically caffeinated LaCroix. As a teacher at a high school,
What is that?
kids drink it constantly. Bubbler.
What is it called? Oh, bubbler. Bubbler.
I think
Not
that's what it's called.
bubbly?
No. I think you're the right thing.
Wait, Bang Energy.
No.
Is that what you're thinking of? I don't know.
No. Kids drink them at school constantly.
I don't know. I think GTA Kombucha. Is that what that's called?
Yeah, it
Do
is
you know what I'm
bubbler.
talking
I'm
about?
thinking of the right thing.
Never heard of it. Not hanging out with enough high schoolers, I guess.
They literally have a vending machine at our school with bubbler in it.
What if that's just like a southern Minnesota thing and you don't know that?
I don't think it is. But kids drink it constantly.
Okay, I think that steak should get sponsored by GTA Kombucha. I think that would be the vibe.
That would be epic.
Okay, and then there was something else. Oh, let's talk about the Daniel Ricciardo of it all because it's getting so dark. And
I feel like the darkest part is watching him try to almost justify what's going on. And I even in the post race show, he was saying like it's not the same thing that happened at McLaren. And watching from the outside,
yeah,
it feels like the same vibe, I will
yeah.
say.
Well, it's interesting because I feel like RB, V-Carb, is trying really hard to be like, we've got your back, Danny. You can do this. It's very like, which I love that energy. I'm not against that. All the drivers should get that until they're like, this is not working. You know, people need what they need. And it seemed like last year for that bit where he was driving, that was really like working for him, where it was like they were really supportive. They were really like working as a team. And
Red Bull was so
then
happy to have Danny back in the family.
now it's just like, what is happening? What is happening? He's the perfect like opposition to Carlos in that sense. Is that too dark? Where it's like, and it's interesting because literally Danny basically followed Carlos around until Carlos went to Ferrari.
He did. He 100% did.
Yeah, he went to Renault. So then Carlos lost his seat at Renault and went to McLaren. Then he left
went to
Renault
McLaren.
and went to McLaren. Carlos went to Ferrari. And both started out in V-Carb or Minardi, Red Bull, Toro Rosso, whatever.
Oh man.
But yeah, and it's like you can see how I'm way too far gone on Carlos right now. So just let me enjoy this moment. But you can see how like he took each of those places that could have been like each time he basically got forced into leaving the team because Danny was coming, he could have taken those as like,
but when he went to
Ferrari, not working
Ferrari,
for me?
He made that before Danny came to
Yeah.
McLaren. Anyways, but yeah, I know what you mean.
But he could have been like, why is this not working for me? Like, what am I doing? You know, just like could have let that destroy him. And instead he was just like, on to the next thing.
I'm going to work hard. I'm going to make this work. I'm going to be flexible. I'm going to be the best that I can.
It does feel like, okay, I have this theory. This is like about life that sometimes when a thing is not working for you, some people's natural instinct is to be like, I need to push it harder. Right? Like you're like, I can't get this thing to work. If I just put more force behind what I'm doing, it'll work. But most of the time in life, that's not a good idea because usually there's a reason you're coming up against resistance. And the better option is to actually should I have like a podcast where I tell people how to live their life? Just kidding. The better option is to take a step back, take a deep breath and say, why is this not working? What can I do to get it to work? Like I think about, yeah, like this for me, it's like, that is the keystone of midwifery. This is the, you know, and I'm sure this is the same thing with like teaching. Like you can have a student who you're really coming up against, who you can be like, I'm going to push on that. And then you're actually going to get them to push back more and make this relationship more strained. Or you can be like, what's going on with this student and how can I work with them rather than against them? And I feel like Danny he has this energy where it's like the thing is not working and he is like, let me put more force behind it. And you're like, it's stuck. Why don't we assess why it's stuck?
Yeah, no, I as a teacher, I find the more stressed and tired and busy I am, the more I fall into the pattern of just trying to force it instead of being more reflective and like removing myself temporarily or like changing the situation temporarily so that I can analyze it from a like more objective perspective.
Yeah. I mean, and
Yeah.
I think that's like such a human way to
Mhm.
feel like something's not going your way. So then you're like, well, then I'll work harder. And
Mhm.
it's not easy to be like, actually, maybe I need to step back and understand why this
Mhm.
isn't working.
Yeah. It's like Tiana from Princess and the Frog.
I don't know what that reference means, so you're gonna
You
have to
don't
explain it.
the Disney movie Princess and the Frog, where it's
I've
like
seen it one time, but it was like a long time
down
ago.
in New Orleans, and she gets turned into a frog, and they go find like Mama Juju in the
Yeah.
bayou,
Okay.
and the oh the Mama this like bayou lady sings this whole song about I don't. Anyways, Tiana takes the point totally wrong, where she's just like, I gotta try harder and work harder, then I can fix everything. Mama Juju's just like, no, you're not listening.
Yeah.
Anyways,
And maybe that's not at all what's happening with Daniel, but that's like
that's what it feels like.
I feel like you can kind of feel when that's happening to someone. Like you have a coworker
Mhm.
who you're like, oh, I think you
Mhm.
actually need to stop pushing on this issue. It's not
Mhm.
helping.
Yep. Or you need
But
to go talk to people with an outside perspective, wanting to actually get advice that you might not think of yourself,
yeah, I
instead of
don't
just
know.
looking for someone to be like, yeah, you're right about this situation.
Whoa. Whoa.
I'm not
Yeah.
saying that's what Danny's doing at all. I'm just saying that like people in general can do that sometimes.
Yes. Yeah, so that's yeah, Danny's making me really sad right now. I don't know what to do about that.
On the opposite hand, Yuki is doing amazing
Yeah,
and
he
it got
is.
P7
Yeah.
because which do we want to talk about Fernando's penalty?
Yeah.
I saw on
So
Twitter
he got a penalty
he got a
for basically
penalty.
like quote unquote break checking George.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it.
But I think
Um,
that's in dispute.
yes, because well, you see drivers so often like break and use different techniques in different ways when they're trying to be defensive. Like Checo did that in Abu 21 in order to back up Lewis. What was K-Mag doing all of last race?
Yeah. But he was
Um,
getting penalized. He
but not
was.
for that.
No, yeah. And it was interesting. I guess I hadn't like, I mean, I knew that they can charge that battery to get a bigger boost, but I hadn't like put the thought into like, oh, would you consider doing that in some cases just to try to outrun your competition in these
Mm,
very last laps? And of course,
mhm.
Fernando would do that. Like, that's his whole thing. He's a strategy man. He's a
Oh
strat man.
yeah. But yeah, well, and I saw I don't remember who and but it was somebody that I don't know, but they're a racing driver of some sort who put on Twitter basically like this is racing. And so it just like sets a bad precedent to
I think
penalize someone for doing this.
the way I took the tweet that you were referring to was more like this is the reality of modern day racing where you have a battery you can charge.
Mm,
But we're still in this era where it's not new, but it's like the idea of utilizing it in this way is different. And since our
yeah.
rules come from before that time,
Mm,
you would say like, well, that's, why was his delta so much slower than the
yeah.
previous lap? I don't know.
I don't know.
Uh
I
yeah.
was in my personal opinion, I don't think that penalty was particularly necessary. I also feel like it's not the end of the world in terms of like Aston Martin, in all likelihood at this moment in time, is gonna end up fifth in the championship. Like it's just kind of what's gonna happen because
Yeah.
they're not fully keeping up with the other five or the other four top
This
teams,
season,
but they're miles ahead of the back five teams.
yeah, obviously so much can change so quickly, but
Yeah.
I do feel like this season feels a bit more, everyone's almost like kind of slotted into their places already compared to last season. Felt like there was a lot up for grabs. People were very close.
No one's
Yeah.
made a giant move this season,
Mhm.
is what it feels like.
And Ferrari's like much faster than it was last season. And
Mhm.
that's
But
I
there's no like
also
Aston Martin jumping from sixth to second
no.
for the
If
first
anyone's jumping, it's
10
Alpine
races.
to last.
That is a wonderful move. Oh, the poor baguettes.
The poor baguettes. Yeah, Alpine,
Oh
she
my
struggles.
gosh. I am curious, like, is this gonna bond Pierre and Esteban to where they're actually friends?
No. Also, like, I know that like they're both doing badly. The car is not good, but like still, I don't know. I've just been having this like urge every time I see Esteban on the screen to be like, fire Esteban.
Grace!
I don't know
Oh
why,
my
Anne. I couldn't tell
gosh.
you. I don't know. I just feel it. Like, I think he might be the problem. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah. But let's talk the podium quickly. Let's talk podium. But also I want to make a
Yes.
brief detour to qualifying where Charles just bailed out on that last lap because he knew he wasn't going to improve. I was like, what is happening?
It probably saves his
Um,
tires a little bit. I
yeah,
don't
who
actually
knows?
know.
I don't know either. Yeah, so the Carlando love was all around. Carlos's dad was there. They all like all of Ferrari was there, of course, 1-2 podium.
I feel like this moment that was the sweetest to me was Carlos Sr. giving Lando a hug.
That
Because to
was
me, that shows the strength of their bond.
did you hear the radio with Carlos being like, tell Charles to come up next to me so we can like celebrate this together? That was
Yes.
very sweet.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just like very good. He seemed so
Very happy
genuinely like
vibes.
shocked that that had happened.
Mm-hmm.
Like it felt like he was like, wait, what? Yeah.
Yes.
So
All a
truly a
joy.
delight. Yeah, felt like a very, they were really celebrating on that podium. It's very cute.
So sweet. So cute.
Oh, wait,
fun.
here's my last favorite thing. Okay. Charles not being able to understand Gunther. He was
I
like,
know.
what? What? He
Which,
could
to
get
be
nothing.
fair,
Which
I was having a little trouble understanding Gunther watching the TV. It was very late, so that may have contributed to it. But Charles not being able to understand him sitting right there was hilarious.
no, it was incredible. And like Carlos and Lando both could understand. You could tell they were like working for it, but they were getting it. And Charles, I felt like he was just like, what's happening?
What?
Do you think Charles was like, who is this? I've never met him. No. Was it Charles was a reserve driver for Haas, I think, before he went to Sauber.
When he was an F2, I think he was.
Yeah. Incredible. Incredible. Yeah.
Okay. Last thing before we go. I've been
Yeah.
thinking through driver market predictions.
Yes. Yes.
Here's my current prediction that I've landed on.
Okay.
Carlos goes to Red Bull.
I think you might be right.
Alonso goes to Mercedes until
That's so
Kimi
smart of
Antonelli or some
Mercedes.
other junior is ready.
That would be so smart of Mercedes.
Yuki goes to Aston Martin because they're going to be Honda sponsored.
That's actually brilliant. I hope that is what happened because like Yuki's never going to Red Bull, but I think he might like kill it at Aston Martin.
And Checo goes
Okay.
to Williams and is best buds with Alex Albon. And helps rebuild
Okay.
the team with
Now,
Alex.
I think Valtteri is out of his seat. Like, what's happening at stake?
That I don't know. This is the extent of my predictions that I've made so far. Should we take a break for a second? You can come back and tell us yours.
Okay.
All right. We'll be right back. Are you a high school student who stayed up till 3 a.m. playing Fortnite? Are you a Formula One fan who had to wake up at 3 a.m. to watch the Australian GP because you're in Europe? Have I got the product for you? Bubbler allows you to get the caffeine and energy you need without the calories because it's a seltzer. Formula One teams, take note. There's a new product on the market that needs to sponsor you. Welcome to Bubbler.
Okay, now that we know that Bubbler is from the Midwest, it's from Wisconsin, people. It's also
did
like
some
such a
research during the break.
hilarious idea to have them be a sponsor of an F1 team that's like literally a global, like you wouldn't be able to get it. Just saying. But I mean, love, 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 love. As far as my predictions,
Let's hear them.
before this race, I was really like, I think Carlos is going to go to Mercedes and he'll do 1 year at Mercedes and then he'll go to Audi.
Mhm.
I am no longer sure about that. Although I feel like it's not a bad plan. I just do think Mercedes is like really struggling right now. So then you're kind of like, what's the future look like for them?
Mhm.
Here's my concern with Red Bull. I've heard other people say like, oh, he would like be very well matched with Max's driving style.
Doesn't he like an understeery car?
But that's what I think. I'm like, I don't actually think that's true. Maybe I'm totally
Yeah.
wrong.
I think
I
he's
don't know.
adaptable enough that he can handle it.
I
Like, I
think
think him and Checo and probably now Alex are the 3 drivers I would say on the grid that would put up some competition and would be willing to put themselves in that position. Or like Lewis Hamilton and Charles and Lando are probably not going to want to bring themselves to Max's team.
I mean, I also like, yeah, Carlos doesn't have the ability to be like Lando and just like hanging out at McLaren.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
But
Okay, I had 2 more thoughts for
okay,
drivers market
let's hear
before you
'em.
continue to share yours.
That's
I
all my
think
thoughts.
Nico Hulkenberg is gonna go to Audi,
Really?
and I think Ollie Bierman is gonna replace him at Haas.
And you think that
Because Nico's been so impressive the last couple years, and he might see Audi as a like option of how to be at a better team for the future. And isn't Audi German?
yes, I guess, but then are you saying that Magnussen's gonna stay at Haas?
He's been doing fine this year. Like he last year it felt like he got outclassed by Nico a lot. And
Yeah.
I
This year they're
haven't
more
noticed the
evenly
same
matched.
pattern. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that because I love Nico and I want to see him on the grid, but I'm also like, there comes this point where you're like, are you like, is he really gonna win a race?
Did you see that Lando had set the record for most podiums without a win?
Yeah. Orlando.
Orlando.
But like at least he's getting podiums. Like he's
Mm-hmm.
close. And I guess that's my thing is not that it's not that I don't want Hulkenberg to be there because I think he's a good driver. I definitely understand the appeal as a team of being like, this person can consistently get us some points.
Mm-hmm.
But it does sort of like kind of get to that point where you're like, are we keeping like maybe there is a rookie out there who's even better and we don't know it? Like,
Yeah.
it feels different when it's someone like Fernando, where you're like, he's really fighting for a win. He's like 47 years old and still fighting. He wants it. He would take another world championship. I don't really get that feeling with Nico. I feel like he almost has the vibe of like, I was going to retire, but then they offer me the seat and I do enjoy doing this. So I thought I'd keep going. And you're like, that's great.
I don't know if I've really gotten that vibe that much from him because he did so much like reserve driver and development driver and subbing for several different Formula One teams after he got dropped by Renault for several years of like he was determined not to go somewhere else and do other series and just to stay trying to make it work with Formula One.
Maybe I'm wrong.
I could be wrong too.
But yeah, I don't
We
know.
don't know, Wheel.
We don't know, Wheel. But yeah, it does. And it also feels like everything's going to be in such big flux for 2026. Like, there's so many rumors right now about how Adrian Newey might leave Red Bull, how Max might be leaving Red Bull, how the car might be terrible. Like,
The engine for 26 might be terrible.
yeah.
If Max and Adrian Newey leave, Red
And then
Bull
it's just Carlos.
will not be the winning machine
Yeah.
that it was. Like, there's just no
Yeah.
way. It's not Christian Horner that is making those things happen. He's hiring the people that are making those things happen. But Christian Horner is not doing it himself.
Yeah, it does feel like we're coming up to this moment where it's like very unclear who will be the dominant team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it could be Red Bull for the next 3 years. Red Bull could collapse by the end of this year. Who knows?
Who knows? Yeah, because, well, isn't the issue that Max was having like it was his brakes? And that's like a known issue that the Red Bull is having. And it feels like it's a sign of a deeper issue that they like know this and then still had a full brake failure very early on.
Yeah, I don't know enough about it, to be honest. Like, I wasn't aware that it was a known issue for the Red Bull. I know he always talks about gear shifts.
I don't know. I don't know, Wheel. But yeah, great race. Go Carlos. Yay, Chile. What a smooth operation.
Go Yuki and the Haas's.
Yeah. Good job, Yuki and the Haas's.
Also, man, those 8 points are gonna set AlphaTauri up for a while. I need to stop calling them AlphaTauri.
I know. Does
RB.
Yuki the only one who's gotten points for them too? V-Carb.
These are their only points. But he got 8 points yesterday.
8 points. Yeah.
How epic.
Epic.
But which also, I mean, Haas getting 3 points is a big deal too. Because they now have 4 points.
Williams still has none.
But they've got to be second in the championship because they have at least one 11th place. Well, no, it's Sauber also has an 11th place. Because in the first race, Show was the like next behind the top 5 teams.
I don't know.
Watching the back 5 teams is going to be very interesting this year.
Yeah, I think that's actually the exciting part this year.
Yep. Unless Red Bull implodes, then the whole thing is going to be chaos and very exciting.
It's going to get really good. Yeah. Love it. Love it. Couldn't wear it. Yeah.
Man, I very excited for Japan. Not excited for another midnight start time.
I love these. These are peak West Coast.
They are peak West Coast. For me, it's
Because it is
just
really
like
fun to like have like I went out with friends and we like got dinner and had a couple drinks and then we came home and watched the race.
for me, it's finishing at 1 in the morning.
Yeah.
Yep, that's a little tired today.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. What else? Did you have anything to add?
Not that I can think of.
Perfect.
Thanks
Okay.
for joining us, everybody.
Yeah. Send us what you think the send us what you think will be happening in the drivers market for 2025.
Yes, write in your predictions. We'll make a spot on our stories on Instagram for you to
Yeah.
write in your predictions. But thanks for joining us, everybody.
Yeah.
And we'll see you in a couple weeks for Japan.
Bye.
Bye.